Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the July 31st, 2020 edition of Mouse Quiz. We have an exciting guest co-host tonight. I would like to welcome to the show Dr. Jeffrey A. Barnes. How you doing tonight, Jeff?
I'm great. How are you, Chad?
I am doing great. I am looking forward to this. You are a author, speaker, college professor. I think you wrote the first college level class on the history of Disneyland, right? Isn't that the fact?
Well, as far as I know, I teach the world's only accredited college course on the history of Disneyland, and as a result, wrote a best-selling book entitled "The Wisdom of Walt: Leadership Lessons from the Happiest Place on Earth," and then followed that up with a book on Walt Disney World: Beyond the Wisdom of Walt. Yeah, we get to have a lot of fun with our passion for Disney.
Awesome. And so, when's the next international park version coming out? Have you?
We're working on that. We want to finish the trilogy, the worldwide Wisdom of Walt, which will focus on the international parks and the cruise line. The challenge
Okay.
is we have to get to the Asian parks, and unfortunately, that's just not possible right now. But we've got an outline. We know what we're going to be writing on. We've just got to get there first.
Yeah, got to get there and got to do a little bit of more, little bit more research tonight. So
Absolutely.
that's pretty awesome and fun. And we're looking forward to a fun night of leadership questions, Walt inspired questions, and Disneyland questions. We've got all of that
Absolutely.
lined up. We got 3 rounds tonight, and we're only doing 3 rounds tonight because we know you're going to be just full of great stories as well. And so I'm going to welcome to the back to the show our normal quiz writer, Pete. So, hey, Pete, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Hey, Chad, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Well, I appreciate you co-hosting tonight because you got the night off. We made Jeff write all the questions. So
I know I'm excited. I get to participate in the trivia the same night that I'm on the show, so that's pretty nice.
awesome. And that's so much fun. Let me start to go through our intro banners here as well. And just give everybody a recap if you're new to the show that this is our version of social distancing. And it's a way that we have created for people to stay home, stay safe, and stay magical and play trivia all at the same time. When this COVID crisis hit, all the YouTubers were kind of shut down. They couldn't get into the park. I looked at this and went, man, there's a big gap that needs to be filled here. So, what can I put on and create that's Disney related that we can start to fill some of the void here? And that's when we created this mouse quiz platform where you can play at home and play trivia on your smartphone while you watch this stream, and all of your scores are tabulated and that kind of fun stuff. So if you guys could, and you haven't yet, if you could please share, like, subscribe to the show, we'd be very honored if you would do that. And we usually get a bunch of first-time guests with us every time. So if you're just now new to us, what we are going to have you do is for round one, you bring up a smartphone and then go to crowd.live/wisdom of Walt. And play trivia all at the same time. And yep. So if you guys could, then bring up a smartphone, crowd.live, wisdom of Walt. And if I bring this screen up and take that banner down, you can actually use your phone and the QR code now. We've got some pretty cool tech that's over here. You can just scan that and you'll be able to join us with that. So crowd.live/wisdom of Walt or use the QR code. And if you're brand new to us, what we'll have you do is pick a screen name and add your email address and pick a team or play as free agents. We have numerous, probably like up to 10 different podcast families now that are playing with us. And if you want to play for your podcast team, you can do that. We can see who's got the best podcast team tonight at the end of the show. And we'll also show you the top ranking player of the night as well, because we keep all of those scores and tabulate it. So that's a little bit about what we've got going on tonight. And let me drop this back over to this view. And we'll leave that ticker going. But I want to come in and see our welcome home comments tonight as well. So Tony Ann is back and she is playing. So is Scott is here. Evelyn's back with us as well. And good evening to you too, Sheila. And hi, Eileen. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have a ton of fun playing Disney trivia. And
I always like seeing more first timers coming in.
Yeah, isn't that the truth, right? And so Sheila says she's playing for the Team Monorail Tales tonight. All right. And greetings from Jersey Shore. And then our buddy Dan is back, and he's saying greetings. Excited for tonight's question, and I'm interested in checking out the books. Absolutely. So, Jeff, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your books while we'll
All
follow
right.
Dan's
So
lead here.
sure. So, The Wisdom of Walt, Leadership Lessons from the Happiest Place on Earth came out in 2015. It really focuses on Walt's life and all of the obstacles that he faced in making his dream of Disneyland come true. And it starts with a story in each chapter from the park, ends each chapter with, again, a story from the park. But I think most importantly, it focuses on really the reader's story. What is your goal? What is your dream? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And it takes what we all love about Disney and connects either stories from Walt's life, stories from Disney, and really motivates and inspires you to move forward and to make something magical happen, not just for you, but for the people around you. And think about it like this. What would Anaheim, California be like today? What would Orlando be like today? What would the world be like today if Walt had not accomplished his dream? We needed Walt to do what he did, and we need you to do whatever your goal might be, whatever your dream might be. And that really is what the wisdom of Walt is all about.
Yeah, it really is. It's a great book. It's so good. I made my, at the time, 12-year-old read the book to earn a trip to Disneyland with
Oh,
me to
wow.
go to a conference. So, yeah, so Reagan had to do both books and a book report on them. Probably about 5 books I made her read, and 2 out of the 5 were yours, Jeff. So that was a
Awesome.
pretty fun deal, and she enjoyed it as well. And so it's written at a level that a 12-year-old can get it. I can guarantee you that. And yeah, it was a really, really, really great book.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know I'm an academic. Don't let that scare you away. If you look at the reviews on Amazon, they're really high, and people will say easy read, very accessible.
Mhm.
And that was intentional because, when you get into Disney, it's very intentional because it's accessible for everyone, right?
Yep.
Walt never got past a ninth grade education. And I want the wisdom of Walt to be something that taps into the kid in all of us. And we feel different when we go to a Disney park. And I want the reader to feel different when they are in, whether it's a chapter, whether it's a story, whatever it might be, when they're reading, whether it's the wisdom of Walt, which focuses on Disneyland, or beyond the wisdom of Walt, which focuses on Walt Disney World.
Awesome. 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 So let me get to a couple more comments here, and then we'll go ahead and kick this round off because we're at about our 8-9 minute mark, which is where I'd like to start. So, Evelyn, let me put this up, and there's the QR code if you want to try that. And Steve was saying this is a great date night. Just don't tell my wife. We'll keep it quiet. We won't broadcast that at all. See, I didn't even put it up on the screen. And got some more people playing for the Team Monorail Tales tonight. And Sheldon is looking forward to some zebra gnomes tonight. And I think we're gnome free tonight. I'm just gonna fall on the sword on that one. We'll have to bring some back for next time. But that being said and done, I think we've got enough people that we should be ready to do this. We've got 36 people logged in, which is a little light for us tonight, but I think it's time to go ahead and get things started. And Jeff's going to entertain us with some great stories on some of these questions here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and kick off this round, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. All right. Well, congratulations here to Amanda, Scott, and Karen. And so, Pete, how'd you do that round? Did you find it hard? Was it came in fifth? You were neck and neck
I'm in
right
fifth, but yeah, I'm in fifth, but I only got 6 right, so I guess I was pretty fast on the other ones. Those were good questions. I like
Yeah,
that.
I thought those were really good questions as well. So, just for everybody who's watching tonight, what kind of questions did you guys have tonight? I think I'm going to pull this up and come over to the results summary, and we'll start to talk
A
through
couple of them I
this.
answered, and I went, "Oh, I knew that." And then the last one, I do not know my Country Bears characters, so
Long live CBJ, man. So just coming back into this and checking out the results summary. Let me see if I need to make that bigger. If I can. So Disneyland broadcast, ABC, right? And
That is correct. I was so tempted to make Disney Plus an option, but I resisted it. And of course, the irony is that Disney owns ABC today, and the temptation is to go with NBC because that contract was only for 5 years, and then they turned around and made the deal with NBC, and the whole reason NBC bought in was because they wanted to sell color television sets, and the reason why older folks like myself remember the wonderful world of color is because of the tie-in between Disney's color television show on Sunday nights. And see, NBC had they were owned by RCA. And so that was the killer app for selling color television sets in the 1960s.
oh wow, that I did
Yeah.
not realize. So that's
Yeah. So when you're
another-
watching World of Color in DCA, which is the nighttime show, you have to remember it started with ABC, which was a 5-year contract, and then they went to NBC. And the reason why NBC, which was out in 1955 because they thought this was never going to work, the reason why they were all in come 1960 was this is the way we're going to sell color televisions, and it worked.
Yeah, it must have, right? And then this one, I knew this one, so I knew Elvis Presley wasn't there because I didn't think he was like a really big Disney fan.
So here's the deal. Rumor has it he never went to Disneyland, like ever. Yeah, which is interesting.
that's almost
because
surprising.
I have a friend who is actually an Elvis impersonator, and I've given him a tour. So I don't think that counts, actually. But short of my friend, rumor has it that Elvis was one of the few celebrities or dignitaries of the 50s, 60s, 70s who never stepped foot into Walt's Magic Kingdom. It seems like everybody else did, but for whatever reason, Elvis did not.
Yeah, and then
And it's interesting. We watched the opening day broadcast in my History of Disneyland class, and when my students see Ronald Reagan come on to the onto the screen, they're like, "Wow, how did Walt get the President of the United States to help him open Disneyland?" And of course, in 1955, Ronald Reagan is a B actor at best in Hollywood, and is 25 years away from becoming president.
Yeah. But it's interesting that, your college, I guess kids, we would call them. I'm showing my age now, right? But
Yeah.
What, 19, 20, somewhere in that age?
Yes, you're being kind.
Okay, and then I would have guessed John Stamos out of that list because I know he's huge.
That's who I thought. I always wonder where he keeps everything because he has like a bunch of original ride vehicles too. I've heard.
So the marquee is in his backyard, which is a home off of Mulholland Drive, and supposedly a piece of it can be viewed if you know the address and where to look on Google Earth.
Oh.
Okay.
So there's a little trivia for you.
Yeah, hey, that'll work for me. Okay. Which celebrity used to work at the Magic Shop? I think we did really well at picking Steve Martin on that one.
Yeah, if you've ever watched the 50th anniversary video that they show on a loop at the Main Street Opera House, Steve Martin narrates that video, which is really, really, really good. And he shows a picture of him working at the magic shop back in the day.
Excellent. And then this one I remembered from going there that Nixon was the first politician that took a ride on the Disneyland monorail. Wasn't that like
Yep.
opening day?
He was the governor, wasn't he, at the time?
No, he was vice president.
Oh, he's vice president. That's right.
Yeah, so Nixon grew up in Yorba Linda, which is just a few miles from Anaheim, and he's Eisenhower's vice president, and he's there for the big Tomorrowland expansion, June 14th, 1959, and he will cut the ribbon. I say cut the ribbon because the scissors didn't work that day, but he will cut the ribbon on the monorail, the submarines, and the Matterhorn. And when they go on the monorail, it is the first time that the monorail will actually run successfully. Up to that point, Bob Gurr and Walt are not convinced because it has not run successfully. Like, it's catching fire, it's breaking down. Like, they're really, really worried about this. And they get the vice president into it. He and Walt take off. And Walt is so thrilled that they make it all the way around without incident that Walt says, let's go again. But they don't stop to tell the Secret Service. And so for a moment in time, Walt actually successfully kidnaps the vice president of the United States because the Secret Service is actually in a panic because they didn't know that they were going to like take him around again. And of course, knowing what we know, what happens with Nixon later, some might argue that Walt should have kept him, but that's a whole nother story.
That's a great story, Jeff. And then, of course, Nixon comes back, and I think this one's kind of a Disney trivia fan deal here.
Yeah,
I did not know this one.
You didn't know that one, Pete?
No, I'd never heard that.
So
my goodness.
Nixon's probably most famous speech is the "I am not a crook" speech he gave at the Contemporary Resort in, I believe it was February of 1973. The people have got to know if their president is a crook, and he says, I am not a crook," and it is at, I believe, a Chamber of Commerce convention at the Contemporary Resort at Walt Disney World.
Wow.
And his press secretary was a former Jungle Cruise skipper.
Oh.
Because they're all from Southern California. They're all local.
Yeah,
So,
and then
I write about so there's a chapter in Beyond the Wisdom of Walt, Learning to Lead Yourself, and a lot of this sort of trivia gets played out in that particular chapter.
Okay. And then this one I didn't know as well, that Tom Sawyer Island
I got
was
that
the
one.
only attraction designed by Walt himself.
Yeah, so when they designed Rivers of America, they had the island out there, but they didn't know what they were going to do with it. And there were a lot of different ideas, but they didn't really settle on anything until Walt realized that they really needed sort of a playground for kids where they could just go and run and do whatever. And Walt, being from Missouri, decided that it really should be themed around Tom Sawyer. And the Imagineers worked on it, and nothing they did was anything to his liking. So he just took it home one night and stayed up the entire evening designing it, took it in the next morning, put it on the lead Imagineer's desk and said, that's how it needs to be done. And that's how they did it.
Right. Okay, then. So the boss says this way, and it's this way, right?
That's right. And it remains the only attraction single-handedly designed by Walt and Walt alone.
Yeah, and
until the lawyers got a hold of it, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, and then the first attraction to be simultaneously constructed in both Disney World and Disney.
You know, our participants struggled with this one.
Yeah, I would have struggled with this one.
I knew it, and then I doubted myself, and I was like, because the Haunted Mansion, they built the building so much earlier than the ride opened, right? They built the building in like
The building,
1962 or 63, right?
63. The building stood there in 1963, waiting for the Happy Haunts, and they got distracted with the World's Fair, and then Walt died, and they opened Pirates and New Orleans Square, blah blah blah, and they didn't actually open Haunted Mansion until '69. And of course, by then they knew they were going to Florida, and so everything that they built for Haunted Mansion, they built two of, and they set what they needed for Florida aside and then shipped it to Orlando so that it would be an opening day attraction for Magic Kingdom in October of '71.
So how did we not get a Hatbox Ghost then in Orlando?
Well, you didn't get a Hatbox Ghost in Anaheim either until 5 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say just recently.
Okay.
So,
I didn't realize that one was not an original deal as well.
But here's the thing, like, so I don't understand why, like, you can go to Orlando and get Hatbox Ghost Memento. Like, how does anybody in Orlando even understand what that is?
Oh, there's enough Disney nerds out there.
Yeah, there's enough Disney nerds and us podcasters that talk about this stuff. So I guess that's it, right?
I think they were selling Hatbox Ghost merchandise before they even put the one in California. So,
well, because Tony Baxter was like, because it was like this whole rumor thing that Disney denied, and then they finally got it to work and made it a thing for the 60th 5 years ago, which is really cool. So anyway, and then
okay, well that's kind of cool. And then I wouldn't have known this one, and it looks like most of the audience didn't either.
Back to back tricky Haunted Mansion questions.
Yeah, back to the tricky Haunted Mansion questions. And I did Google this, and sure enough, that house that they modeled it after, it really looks like that house. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, Tony Ann answers your question here, and she says, because we are Disney freaks and we love Hatbox Ghosts. Right. And then this last question here, this one I would have guessed Trixie as well. Because
I thought this was I want to say that I thought this was a tricky question. I'm surprised that as many people got this one, to be honest with you. I thought this was a tough question.
Well, I knew all of the characters up there were male, and Trixie is the only female one. So that's how I would have reasoned that.
Okay.
If I'd had longer time, as I said, I don't know the characters in Country Bear Jamboree, so I just looked at the list and I guessed one, and then I was like, oh yeah, Trixie would be? I know she's one of the bears, so
okay,
because she's the one on the swing, right?
She is.
Yeah. So I should have gotten it right, but
well, I mean, good job knowing that there are characters remaining.
Yeah. And so let's just
that much I knew.
Pick up some of the comments here as well. And then
those are really hard to catch though, because even knowing that they're there, I've looked for them on Winnie the Pooh, and you gotta turn around right at the right spot to see those three heads from Country Bear Jamboree.
And your neck can hurt for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Fine. Looking for those can be tricky, and I do it on my tours, and it's not easy. And finding the Eeyore sign in the Indiana Jones queue isn't easy either. Does everyone know about that?
I don't know about that actually.
So when they built the queue for Indiana Jones, because the Indiana Jones attraction is actually closer to downtown Disney than it is to Adventureland. It's built in this massive show building that's way outside the park. And in carving out the queue, they took out the old Eeyore section of what used to be the Disneyland parking lot. And so they left the Eeyore sign from that section of the parking lot, and it's way up high above the projector in the projector area of the queue. And if you know just where to look, you can still see the old Eeyore sign. But again, you've got to know just where to look. It is cool.
Okay.
But you've got to know where to
on
look.
my list to go check out for next time. That's for sure.
All right. Yep.
That's for dang sure. Right. So,
and that would have been a good trivia question. What section of the old Disneyland parking lot can you see from the Indiana Jones queue?
Yeah. And so Holly
That would have
was
been a hard
saying,
one.
yeah, that she would have never guessed the haunted mansions found there. Scott was saying tonight, fun but fair questions. And he also came back and said, but bedtime for Bonzo is an American classic from the Ronald Reagan stuff tonight, right?
There you go.
And then Dan saying, fascinating information tonight, great stories. Yes, when we have guest authors on, we cut it down to 3 rounds of trivia so that we can have more chat time like this.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
And
Diane was,
even more information in the best-selling books.
yep. And Diana was saying, right, she could listen all day. And I've covered that one from Tony. And Scott's saying you can buy Mr. Toad stuff now in Disney World as well.
Yay. Yeah, don't get me started. Don't get me started on losing Mr. Toad at Disney World, which had 2 tracks, not just one.
I know.
To Winnie the Pooh.
Gina also commented that you need a flashlight to see
A
the
flashlight
sign.
helps. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And yeah, thanks for playing here, Jerry. So,
Jerry. Hey, Jerry.
So, yep. And so, speaking of which, let's go ahead and kick off the next round. And I would ask you to give us a summary for the round, but it's kind of like more of the same, all 3 rounds tonight. So there's really no separation of this tonight. It was just all great facts from Jeff. And we worked them into some pretty great trivia questions as well. So let me come back in and we'll get this thing kicked off. And Gina, if you could take down the stuff. It's Wisdom of Walt. It's crowd.live/Wisdom of Walt 2. If you're just now joining us. And Gina should have us warped over by about now. So if you're already playing, she will move us all the way over.
Sorry.
And we won't have to do that. She will take us there automatically. And it looks like that is keyed up and ready to go. So let me kill that window off. My screen is warped over. So let's go ahead and share this and get this thing rolling. I'll see you guys back in about 10 minutes after another round of questions. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, and congratulations to Pete, Steven, and Tony Z. So you were on.
Hey,
You were on.
that's my first number one ever.
Is it really? So.
And I swear I did not know the questions ahead of time.
No, we did not show Pete the questions. He does not even have to log into the software.
No,
So-
I don't.
Not at all. Not at all.
I still only got 8 out of 10 though, so I wasn't like I was hitting them all out of the park. But those were
Yeah,
good.
well,
Those are good questions, boy.
Those were really good questions, and we did not nerf the questions tonight at all either. So we kind of kept the questions full strength, just so that we'd have something great to talk about with Jeff here on the screen. So let me pull this up, and we'll start to go over the crowd results on this screen. And so question number 1, the attraction that Walt personally worked on. You had mentioned this earlier tonight, Jeff. So with Pirates there, and I think the crowd did pretty well on that one.
Yeah, I think this is somewhat relatively well known.
Yeah. And then this Casa de Fritos is a classic Chad level distractor, because I would have called something de Fritos. Okay. Jeff, they made a comment earlier tonight about a dessert treat called Zebra Gnomes, Gnomes, instead of Zebra
Yes.
Domes over at Animal Kingdom. And we sneak that in as a distractor question, and it just gets people cracking up all the time.
Got it.
Yeah, I didn't think Casa de Fritos could be a real thing, but I guess it was, huh?
Yeah. So when Disneyland opened, Walt couldn't afford. He could barely afford to build the park, and he couldn't afford to run the restaurants or the shops. So almost everything was leased out, and the Mexican restaurant in Frontierland was leased out to Frito-Lay, and so it was called Casa de Fritos. And at the end of the day, they would often have leftover tortillas, and they weren't real sure what to do with them. And so an ingenious cast member started chopping them up, deep frying them, and dumping seasoning on them. And over time, that became the most popular snack in the park. So much so that by 1966, Frito-Lay decided to take its popular Disney stack nationwide. And today we know them as Doritos. And if you go back and look at the original Doritos logo and the Disneyland sign that used to stand on Harbor Boulevard, that is now in John Stamos's backyard, the Disneyland logo and the Doritos logo are identical.
Wow.
Identical.
Wow.
That's very cool.
That's kind of an interesting piece of trivia there. Okay. And then we did fairly well on this one. I would have guessed Mondays and Tuesdays, but I had read your book, and so I guess I had an inside tip on that one. But yeah, it's just odd to think of any day where the parks aren't open.
Yeah, it wasn't until Eisner and Wells came in that they stopped doing that.
And then question number 4, the inaugural parade at Walt Disney World was Ronald Reagan. So
Yeah,
Ronald's making another comeback.
Yeah, so the irony in that is it was for Reagan's second inauguration following his reelection in 1984.
And what happened was in January of '85, on Inauguration Day, it was like minus 20 in Washington, D.C. And so they still had the inauguration. They just moved it indoors. Everything else was canceled. And, President Reagan felt badly about it. Disney heard what happened. They felt badly about it. And so Michael Eisner reached out to the president and said, hey, if you want to reschedule things to include the bands, the parades, all of it, and bring them to Florida, we'd love to host you. And President Reagan, being President Reagan, said, yeah, I think that would be awesome. And so they did it Memorial Day weekend in Epcot to include the president landing via helicopter behind the American Pavilion. And it is literally the only time the inaugural parade has ever taken place outside of Washington, D.C. And there's 2 points to this. First of all, the president, who is credited with winning the Cold War, missed his second inaugural parade because of bitter cold. So that's kind of fun to think about. But then secondly, the president of the United States was actually upstaged in his appearance at Epcot that day, because that is the first time that Mickey Mouse officially made an appearance at Epcot.
Oh,
because
wow.
before then, he wasn't allowed to be there, because before Eisner, the executives had made the decision that it was not going to be a Mickey park because it was too adult. They were selling alcohol. And when Eisner showed up, he was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so he made a different decision. And so the first time that Mickey ever made an official appearance at Epcot, it was with President Reagan.
And he upstaged him.
Yep. So, and again, that story gets told at the very end of Learning to Lead Yourself. And the point to all of that is, I know we've got a lot of political challenges in our country right now. And whoever's president, whoever is governor, who's ever mayor, none of that is going to matter until you learn to lead yourself. And Walt was once asked, hey, why don't you run for mayor? Why don't you run for governor? Why don't you run for president? And he just looked at the person and said, why? I'm king of Disneyland.
This is true.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So, okay, and I think this next one we did really well on with America Sings.
Yep.
I think all the controversy.
That's a Tony Baxter legend story, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Although I never got to do America Sings, I didn't get to Disneyland until 1988. I had no doubt that it was amazing. I was a kid of the bicentennial. Every 4th of July before 1976 was just a lead up to the bicentennial in 1976. Can somebody explain to me how that attraction fit in Tomorrowland? I haven't quite figured that out.
I haven't
Autotopia and
yeah.
That's not the most futuristic ride either, right?
Jeff, is there a story behind Rainbow Ridge as a name? Because that just doesn't seem to fit like rainbows and Big Thunder Mountain.
Well,
Western.
you remember it replaced Nature's Wonderland, and it went through Rainbow Caverns.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
so they repurposed the town, right?
Correct. Yeah, that was the waiting area and where you actually loaded up to go through Nature's Wonderland, and I think Rainbow Caverns was added as sort of an expansion. And
I think as you are in the queue, you can see the town there, and it actually says Rainbow Ridge there. So if you've you've been in the ride queue, you can actually see that there.
Yeah. And another fun fact about Big Thunder Mountain is supposedly it's the first attraction constructed without Walt's influence.
Oh.
Now, I would argue that there isn't anything built without Walt's influence, but that's a philosophical point.
Well, yeah, that kind of is, because I mean, his legacy lives on.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. And then I think, well, we didn't do as well on Al Michaels' questions as I thought we would have as well, because I think that's a known deal in the Disney community. But again, I've read the books, so
yeah. No, I absolutely love that question. Because, it just, the way that Walt lost his first successful cartoon character, and, instead of panicking, he ends up pivoting and comes up with Mickey Mouse. And he loves saying we can never forget it all started with a mouse, except that it didn't. It started with Oswald the not so lucky rabbit. And that poor rabbit lives in limbo for the next 80 years because Universal doesn't do anything with it, but it won't let Disney have it back, I think, really sort of out of spite. And then, Disney ends up buying ABC, and Universal is owned by NBC. And, NBC gets the rights to Sunday Night Football, and they covet Al Michaels as their broadcaster. And they go to ABC and says, hey, what would it take for us to get Al Michaels, who you have under contract, to be our Sunday night broadcaster? And they were like, well, I don't know. You need to talk to Disney because they're our parent company. And Disney goes, not much. Just let us have Oswald back. And Al Michaels was like, so I got traded for a cartoon character? And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what just happened.
I think that was a win-win trade, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was, right?
Sure. And so when you come to Disneyland and you go to California Adventure and you step onto Buena Vista Street, on the left is Oswald's Gas, and on the right is Mortimer's Market, which is really telling the Oswald Mickey story, because the original name for Mickey was supposed to be Mortimer until Lily said, oh, I don't think so, Walt.
Yeah. And then 2012 was the reimagined
Speaking of California Adventure.
Yep.
And I got that one right only because the first time we went to Disneyland was in 2012, and it was maybe a month after they reopened. So I was like, oh yeah, I know that.
Yep, June 12th, 2012.
I loved them both. I love the original as well, but again, I'm not from California, so I'm not their key market
it's funny. Nikki had never been to Disneyland until 2009, and she liked the original just fine. Now, by 2009, it had Tower of Terror, it had Toy Story Mania, and so it had been plussed quite a bit. But she liked the postcard entry. She liked the Golden Gate Bridge. She liked.
I loved all of that. I loved the sun.
Wrong with it.
Yeah, I did that as well. I think 2001 when it opened, Laura and I had went for the first time.
Yeah.
And we only had money to go to one park. And so we said, well, we've been to Disney World a few times.
Right.
So let's go into California Adventure because it's brand new.
Yeah.
And
yep.
Yeah, it's my favorite park today. Okay. Now, this was an interesting question, and I almost wanted to put in there DCA as a theme park for it as a distractor question, but I was like, oh, that'd be too mean. Okay. But this was originally designed for the Disney's America that was going to go into Washington, D.C.
Well, south of Washington, D.C., it was going to go in Northern Virginia.
Okay. Well, the D.C. area.
Close to Manassas, Virginia. And the locals just had a fit, and Eisner has a lot of regrets over this because they didn't handle it particularly well. But there was going to be an area that focused on the way in which the United States handled the victory in World War II, and this was going to be an attraction that sort of told that story. And because it didn't get built, there isn't anything that the Imagineers ever throw in the garbage or completely put on the shelf. And so when they ended up doing, Disney's California Adventure, they ended up repurposing it, which is a really good thing because, when DCA opened in February of 2001, the locals especially hated the park, and Soarin' was really the only success story that they had.
Wow. I knew it wasn't real popular with the Californians there, but I wouldn't have thought that was.
Well, you have to
happening.
think, why would Californians need a park about California?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Speaking of hated by Californians, question 10.
Superstar Limo was a complete fail. Okay.
Yeah. We went to DCA in June of 2001, so it had been open 3 or 4 months. Our daughter was, I think, in 7th grade, and she brought another friend who was the exact same age. They absolutely loved it. I mean, like perfect age. Short of that, I mean, it was awful. Like it was so bad you almost need to have experienced it. Like it's so bad it almost loops back into you need to experience how bad it was.
Yeah. If they'd let it live a little longer, it probably would have reached that. But
Right.
it wasn't even open a year, right? They didn't even
don't
it
think
didn't even
so.
last a year.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
it's not and I don't mean to upset or offend like the imagination attraction that is in Epcot now, I think is awful.
Uh-huh.
And there isn't any like I don't think anybody needs to experience that, and it's not so bad that like you need to experience how bad this is. Whereas if Superstar Limo had like lived, like it might have looped around to the point where I don't know. But you also there was another like the other thing that didn't help it was the context of Princess Diana being killed in a similar sort of paparazzi scenario.
that's what I think put the nail in the coffin, if I remember
Yeah.
that story right.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So there were some really bad optics around the whole thing.
Got it. Well, I want to check in right now, and this is not quite our halftime. It's really the 2/3 mark.
Sure.
Let's just come back in and see how people are doing here. So let's show the multi-game rankings really quick. And so far, we've got Scott D, Skier Pete, and Steven in the lead with some really tight competition right behind you guys. And the good news is round 2 was 200 points. Round 3 will be 300 points around. And so, let me. I thought I was sharing that, and I wasn't. But there's our multiplayer game rankings, and then let's just check in to see how the podcast teams are doing. And right now, the Crushers are ahead by a pretty good little margin. And then the Imagineer podcast fans are next, followed by the Welcome Homies. So, yeah, good luck, everybody, on this next round. But this next round is worth 300 points. So we should be doing, you'll be able to make up some ground on this one, okay? So let's go ahead, and then if you're just now joining us on this show, it will be crowd.live/Wisdom of Walt 3, okay? And if you're just now joining us, what you'll do is you'll put in to your smartphone, you'll go to that website, crowd.live/Wisdom of Walt 3, put your name, pick a team if you're playing with a podcast team. If not, then go ahead and pick Free Agent, and we will go ahead and kick this round off. So let's go ahead and get this thing going. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, and congratulations to Scott D, Steven, and Jen Yergin. And Pete, you did fairly well that round. You hung in there, top 6 now.
I hung in.
So, yeah. So let's come back in and see how everybody did.
I think it's between Scott and Steven now, though.
Yeah, you think? Yeah, that's going to be a pretty good little fight there. And so let's come back in and just see how everybody did on this round here. Back in and throw that up on the screen, and click on results summary. And question 1 was a little hard. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Which World Attractions Affair never found a home at Disneyland? And for me, it would have been either the Ford Magic Skyway or Progress Land, because those are the two that I'm least familiar with.
So, yeah, this is a little tricky because Progress Land became Carousel of Progress. So it actually did make its way home to Disneyland. Of course, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln came home to Disneyland, still there. It's a Small World came home, still there. The Ford Magic Skyway, Ford wasn't interested in continuing the sponsorship, so it never made it back, very sadly, very tragically. The only thing that did make it back were the audio animatronics dinosaurs, and you can see those when you go on the railroad between Tomorrowland and Main Street. That's the only thing left.
Oh, okay. And
so correct answer is Ford Magic Skyway.
Oh,
so we need to just delete that one then, Gina. So.
Is it the wrong answer?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. So go ahead and delete that one.
Oh, Gina. I didn't realize. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, we could have.
I'm giving the. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Sorry.
Yeah, well, we want you to give the correct answers, right? But
what's that?
It happens to us every now and then where we miss something and where we fat finger it or that. Our audience has given us quite a bit of grace on this because they realize we work really hard to put on a good show, but occasionally we just get a question wrong, so we throw it out. It doesn't
it's
count.
It's gonna happen.
Yep.
I do it when I'm grading all the time.
Yeah. Yep. And then number 2 makes sense to me as well, that Roy Disney would have been the first in line to give his brother $1 for opening that park.
Which is interesting because he kept telling the banks that if Walt comes down there to talk to them about that quote unquote damn amusement park, that they had better well call him because he didn't want Walt having those conversations. And at one point, Roy and the stockholders sued Walt over his plans for Disneyland. So he goes from wanting nothing to do with it to buying the first ticket, which was only $1 on July 18th.
Wow. I wish we could get in for $1 today. Okay.
No, you don't, because how crowded would it be?
What's that?
No, you don't, because how crowded would it be then?
That's true.
Yeah, well, it's pretty crowded now, so.
That's my point.
It's going to hit capacity sooner or later, right? But
yep.
And then question 3, Main Street, USA. We knew Marceline, Missouri.
Of course.
So Fort Collins was the new one to me.
Yes. Yep.
And so do you know what elements came from Fort Collins?
So a lot of them, because the Imagineer, who I want to say was John Hinch, and I hope I'm right about that, because I struggle with names right now. But the lead Imagineer for Main Street USA came from Fort Collins, Colorado. And he used some of the late 1800, early 1900 buildings from his childhood as some of the inspirations. And you can look this up online. And to be honest with you, Main Street USA looks probably more like Fort Collins, Colorado than it ever did Marceline, Missouri.
Wow, but Marceline gets all the glory. So.
Correct. In terms of size and scale and scope, it's more like Marceline, but in terms of actual buildings, it looks more like Fort Collins.
Okay. Now I'm going to have to go check out both of them as well. And,
yep.
Oh, Amanda says that it's Harper Goff.
Harper Goff. That's interesting because this is a really good point. Because Harper Goff has his window in Adventureland, even though he designed Main Street USA. And then the gentleman who becomes the vice president, who grew up in a house that would become Adventureland has his window on Main Street. And I never have quite understood that. Like, you would think Harper Goff would have his window on Main Street and the vice president would have his window in Adventureland. But there's something there I don't quite get. So thank you for Harper Goff. That was the name I was forgetting. Thank you.
Yep. And then what's the story with the little man of Disneyland?
So in the early 60s, Golden Books, who had a publishing deal with Disney, told the story of a leprechaun who lived in the orange groves that would become Disneyland. And he became friends with all of the characters. And eventually the book became so popular that they actually created a place for the quote unquote leprechaun or the little man of Disneyland to actually live. And so as you're entering the queue for Indiana Jones, if you look in the base of the tree, you can actually see a little stovepipe and a little door in the base of this tree where the leprechaun or the little man of Disneyland actually lives.
Now that you mention it, when I was there with McNair, he pointed that out. So, yeah. Okay. So that one's at least ringing a bell for me as well.
Yep.
So, and then according to Walt, the best way to get started is to quit talking and start doing.
That's right. So we all have goals, right? We all have dreams. We all have things that we want to accomplish. And we talk and we talk and we talk and we talk and we talk. And Walt said, quit talking, start doing. And I was reminded of this when the pre-opening report of Disneyland came out. I had never actually seen that broadcast. It was new for me. And they were talking about things that they were struggling with. This was just a week before the park opened. And they said, a lot of times you figure things out by doing them, right?
Yeah.
Not by talking about them, by doing them.
Yeah. I have a motto that says, hey, man, something that's half done is better than something that's not done at all.
Correct.
Okay? So just hit the publish button. Okay? Just hit the publish button and create something.
I go back to the very first drawing that Walt, had Herb Ryman do. And a lot of it looks familiar. A lot of it was there on opening day. And a lot of it never saw the light of day. He just had to get started. And in the Wisdom of Walt, I have a chapter entitled Starting Early. And, the key to having a successful day at Disneyland is starting early, period. End of conversation, right?
Yeah,
and how much of life is about starting early. Not talking early, but starting early.
Yep. And then I know if you go on the Walk in Walt's Footsteps tour, they take you right to the petrified tree and point it out to you, which was a weird gift for a wedding present.
That's a great story, the story behind that one.
That's like, guys, don't do this. Like,
no, it's funny. I have a colleague at the university. Her last name is Stump. And she told me, because she heard the story, and even she was stumped as to why in the world Walt would give his wife a tree stump as a wedding anniversary gift. The truth of the matter is they were coming back from Marceline in 1956, where the city was honoring both Walt and Roy, and they were dedicating a pool and a community center in their honor. And they were driving back through Colorado, and Walt stopped at a roadside stand, saw the tree, loved it, wanted it, and tried to come up with a rationale for buying it, and remembered that their wedding anniversary, which was the 13th of July, they had been in Marceline on the 4th, remembered that this was coming up and used that, quite frankly, as an excuse for purchasing it. And when he gave it to Lillian, she was like just horrified, because like, what am I going to do with this thing? And she finally just realized, I'll give it to the park. And, it stood by the rivers of America ever since. Oddly enough, my boss at the university, who was from Colorado, his family owned the shipping company that shipped it from Colorado to Anaheim.
Wow. Small world on that one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then first attraction to have air conditioning in Disneyland, the Tiki Room. The crowd did pretty well on that one as well.
Yep. Now the follow-up question is why?
Probably because of the electronics, right?
Got so hot, right?
Yep, because the size of the tiki room matched the underground size of the room needed for all of the computers to run the show. And then they needed the cooling to keep the electronics from overheating. And so it wasn't to keep guests comfortable, it was to keep the electronics from overheating. And it opened June 23rd, 1963. And note, it's always referred to as Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room because Walt owned that show. He made the personal investment in it. Originally, it was not a part of the coupon books. You paid the 75 cents and it went directly into Walt's pocket, not into Disneyland's pocket, because again, he owned it and he paid for it, and you bought it directly from him.
Yeah. So the investors got nothing out of that. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of an interesting piece of trivia there as
And
well.
so to this day, they refer to it not as the Tiki Room, but as Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room.
Yeah,
And
I know
that's only in California they call it that, correct?
I'm not sure. I don't know about Magic Kingdom in Florida.
Yeah, it's one of two attractions, and I've seen a trivia around that called it the only one that's named after Walt. But there's also there was one in Hollywood Studios. It was Walt Disney Presents. So that one also had his name on it. But
Right.
other than that, that's the only one that I know of. And then Country Bear Jamboree was originally designed for the ski resort they were going to put in California, right?
Yep. Walt. He had done the opening ceremonies for the 1960 Olympics in Squaw Valley, and so he was interested in that as a sport, and was heavily invested in doing the Mineral King Ski Resort, and then the Sierra Club, was really instrumental in keeping that from happening, which, all of that took place following Walt's death. But the idea behind the Country Bear show was it was going to be an audio animatronic show in the ski lodge. And when it never came to fruition, they ended up making it an opening day attraction for Magic Kingdom. And it was so popular in Florida that when they opened it in California, they did 2 theaters, not just the one.
Oh, wow. So long live the Country Bears.
Yep.
And
This was a softball question.
This one was really easy.
Aren't you glad?
Yep. So Orange County and the audience nailed that one. And then question 10 regarding procrastination, Walt once said everyone needs deadlines, even the beavers.
Even the beavers.
So that sounds like it's a Walt level of line there. That just sounds Walt Disney-ish.
Yep.
You know what the context was for that quote?
Again, it's just Walt was a doer. Roy said, "I've never seen Walt not working." So, he believed in just getting after it. He believed in doing things.
Yeah.
And so, the books aren't just for dreamers, but they're for dreamers and doers. And that's what Walt was. That's who Walt was.
So, okay, then let's come back in, and I want to do just a final really quick showing or a visual here. I'm going to bring up your books here. This is it, your website, thewisdomofwalt.com. I also put a link in the broadcast tonight for a link to it in Amazon.
Appreciate that.
Yep. And so Jeff's 2 books, The Wisdom of Walt and Beyond the Wisdom of Walt. Maybe we'll have to have you back for a Walt Disney World night.
That would be great.
Where we go through the second book, because I think this is an interesting chat tonight.
And
books,
and just to let everybody know, The Wisdom of Walt has a free newsletter with content that is very similar to what's in the books. It comes out every other Wednesday. Ultimately, it will be compiled into another book entitled Wednesdays with Walt. But right now, that content is 100% free. So if you've enjoyed what you've heard tonight, you can start getting it right now 100% for free. All you have to do is go to thewisdomofwalt.com and click the blog link and give us your email address, and you'll start getting content again every other Wednesday, 100% free.
There you go. Wisdomofwalt.com. So, okay, then. Let's come back in.
You've sold at least one copy of your books because I am now interested in getting them. So I'm going to be picking them up over the weekend.
Well, yeah,
Yay.
not only did you do that, but let's see here. I saw an interesting comment come out tonight as well because Tony Ann said, thanks to Scott Davis because he listens to your audiobooks while traveling for work this week, and he carried the Crushers team. So speaking of that, let's come back in and see just how everybody did. And I accidentally closed the window. I'll log back in here. I left it up, but I can't control it. So give me just a second. And we are back into this. And so now let's come back in and take a peek. Back in, killed the banner, and we'll come in and see the top player of the night. And congratulations to Scott D. Okay. But only by 5 points from Steven.
Woo!
So
They were
that one
battling
was
it out.
neck and neck. And then congratulations to Karen as well. And
I fell
everybody
down in the
else who
last round,
played.
but came in
you
fourth.
stumbled,
So that's
huh?
not bad.
Yeah, well,
No,
congratulations to you, Pete.
Yeah.
And let's see how we did as teams then. And the Disney Crushers. So, yes, Tony Ann called it. So
they
the
crushed.
They crushed.
Crushers crushed tonight. And boy, did they ever crush tonight. And the Monorail Tales trivia team did really well. So did the Imagineer podcast fans. I think, Pete, you must have carried us for the Mighty VC Points team. So
I guess I helped. Yeah.
So anyways, I want to come back in and thank you, Jeff, for joining us tonight. Let's see if there's any more final comments
I
as
loved
well.
Yeah. Thank you for
And-
coming. This was great.
Yeah. Eileen says this was tough, and it was tough, but it's usually pretty fun when you get all of this stuff here.
Tough, but we learned a lot, which is
yes.
to me part of what this trivia is all about. Is not just knowing all the answers, but learning things. So that's very
where
cool.
else can you sit down and get to hang out with a Disneyland, Dr. Disneyland, right? And,
I know.
a professor and learn from him and play some trivia games tonight as well. And so then Amanda was saying that, and Sheila was saying this was a great show, lots of great info. And she said that we would love a second quiz featuring Dr. Barnes. And next time we'll go to Walt Disney World, where that's where our main player jam is.
Yep.
And so our main audience. So when we bring you back, we'll hit the second book pretty hard. But I want to thank you as well for joining the show tonight. And come back in. By the way, if you're wanting to come back in, we've got a bunch of our team that are teachers. And when they get back to school, if anybody would like to come in and join us as a quiz writer, we'd love to come back in and have you. And come in and help co-host the nights, write the quizzes, get things done. And I want to thank author and professor Jeff Barnes once again for joining us tonight. And thank you so much, Jeff. And we look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
Okay. And fun questions tonight. Thank you, Dr. Barnes. And then great anecdotes about my favorite subject. So I think on that note, we're going to end this. And you guys have a great night. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.